My name is Nell, and I just turned 60 years old. For months, I had been looking forward to celebrating this milestone with my daughter Sophie, the person I love most in this world. We had always been close, or so I thought. But on the morning of my birthday, she called to say she had to work late. I understood. Work is important. What I did not understand was the video I saw that evening posted by my ex-husband's new wife showing Sophie laughing and toasting champagne with them at an expensive restaurant. Before we dive into what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely, go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe because this story takes some unexpected turns, and you will not want to miss what I did about it. Now let me take you back to how it all began. I live in Austin, Texas, in a small 2-bedroom house that I bought after my divorce 12 years ago. For 40 years, I worked as a nurse at St. David's Medical Center, caring for patients working long shifts and pouring everything I had into my career. I retired last year, finally ready to enjoy the life I had worked so hard to build. My marriage to Andrew ended when I was 48. He left me for Kristen, a woman 15 years younger than me. She was 30 when they met, blonde, energetic, and everything I was not at that point in my life. I was exhausted from years of nursing, raising our daughter Sophie, and trying to keep our household running while Andrew climbed the ladder at his law firm. The divorce was brutal, not because of lawyers or money, but because of the emotional devastation. I had given Andrew 23 years of my life. We met when I was 23 and he was 25 at a community fundraiser in Denver, Colorado, where we both grew up. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony surrounded by family and friends. Sophie was born 3 years into our marriage. I poured myself into being a good wife and mother, supporting Andrew's career, taking night shifts at the hospital so I could be home during the day with Sophie. I thought we were building something solid. I thought we were happy. When Andrew told me he was leaving, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. He said he needed something different, someone who understood his ambitions. Kristen worked at his firm as a paralegal. She was smart, ambitious, and made him feel young again. Those were his words. Made him feel young. As if I had somehow aged him with my love and devotion. Sophie was 23 when we divorced, the same age I had been when I met her father. She was angry at first, angry at Andrew for leaving, angry at the situation. But over the years, something shifted. Andrew married Kristen 5 years ago, and gradually, I noticed Sophie pulling away from me. She canceled plans more often. Her phone calls became shorter. When we did see each other, she seemed distracted, always checking her phone, always in a hurry to leave. I told myself it was normal. Sophie was building her career as a marketing manager. She was busy. She had her own life. I should not take it personally, but deep down I felt the distance growing between us, and it hurt more than I wanted to admit. My 60th birthday was approaching, and I was determined to make it special. Not a big party, just a quiet dinner with my daughter. That was all I wanted. 2 weeks before the 15th of June, I called Sophie to confirm our plans. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart. I was just calling to confirm our dinner plans for my birthday. Are you still free?" There was a pause. Then, "Of course, Mom. I would not miss it." Relief flooded through me. "Wonderful. I was thinking we could go to the Olive Garden. I know it is your favorite." "Sounds perfect," Sophie said, but her voice sounded distant, like her mind was somewhere else. "Are you okay, honey? You sound distracted." "Just busy at work. We have a big project coming up, but I will be there for your birthday, I promise." I smiled, holding the phone close. "That is all I need. Just you." After we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in months. I went online and made a reservation at the Olive Garden for 6 o'clock on the evening of my birthday. I also called my two closest friends, Patricia and Helen, both retired nurses I had worked with for decades. They were delighted to join us for dinner. But the person I was most excited to see was Sophie. The days leading up to my birthday dragged by slowly. I found myself counting down, planning what I would wear, thinking about what we would talk about. I wanted to hear about her life, her work, her dreams. I missed the conversations we used to have when she was younger, when she would tell me everything. I sent Sophie a few text messages during those 2 weeks. Just casual check-ins, asking how she was doing, if work was going well. Her responses were brief. "Busy at work, Mom. Lots of deadlines. Talk soon." Each short message felt like a tiny rejection, but I pushed the feeling aside. She was busy. That was all. The morning of my birthday arrived. I woke up early, filled with anticipation. I lay in bed waiting for my phone to ring. Sophie always called early on my birthday, usually around 8 in the morning, singing an off-key version of Happy Birthday that made me laugh every time. But 8 o'clock came and went, then 9. By 9:30, I could not wait any longer. I picked up the phone and called her. "Hi, Mom," she answered. Her voice rushed. "Happy birthday." The words were right, but the tone was wrong. There was no warmth, no excitement, just obligation. "Thank you, honey," I said, trying to keep my voice cheerful. "Are you excited for tonight? I made reservations for 6. Silence. A long, terrible silence. "Mom," Sophie finally said, and my heart sank. I knew what was coming. "I am so sorry. Something came up at work." "What do you mean?" I asked, gripping the phone tighter. "We have a major deadline. My boss just told me this morning that we need to finish this presentation by tonight. I have to stay late. I am really sorry." The room seemed to tilt. "But it is my 60th birthday, Sophie. Can you come for just an hour? Just for dinner?" "I really cannot, Mom. This project is critical. My boss is counting on me. If I do not deliver, it could hurt my chances for the promotion I have been working toward." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. "I understand. Work is important." "I will make it up to you, I promise," Sophie said quickly. "We will do something this weekend. We will go somewhere nice, just the two of us." "Okay," I whispered, not trusting myself to say more. "I have to go, Mom. I will call you later." "Okay. Okay." The line went dead. I sat there in my kitchen, still in my pajamas, staring at the phone in my hand. My daughter was not coming to my birthday dinner. After months of looking forward to this, after all the planning, she was choosing work over me. I told myself to be understanding. I told myself that careers are important, that I should be proud of her dedication. But understanding did not stop the ache in my chest. I called Patricia and explained the situation. She was sympathetic but clearly disappointed. I called the restaurant and changed our reservation from 4 people to 3. Then I spent the rest of the day trying to distract myself. I cleaned the house. I did laundry. I watched television without really seeing it. All the while I kept glancing at my phone, hoping Sophie would call back and say she had found a way to make it work. She never did. That evening I got dressed in the outfit I had picked out weeks ago, a navy blue dress that Sophie had once said brought out my eyes. I put on makeup, fixed my hair, and tried to smile at my reflection. 60 years old. Where had the time gone? Patricia and Helen picked me up at 5:30. They were warm and kind, hugging me tightly and wishing me happy birthday. We drove to the Olive Garden, and they did their best to make the evening special. They had brought gifts, beautifully wrapped boxes that I opened at the table. Patricia gave me a lovely silk scarf. Helen gave me a book by my favorite author. They sang happy birthday quietly, not wanting to draw attention, and the server brought out a small slice of tiramisu with a candle. I smiled and thanked them. I laughed at their jokes and listened to their stories. But the whole time there was an empty chair at our table. An empty chair that should have been filled by my daughter. I kept glancing at my phone, checking for messages. Nothing. We finished dinner around 8 o'clock. Patricia and Helen drove me home, walking me to my door and hugging me goodbye. "Are you going to be okay?" Patricia asked, concern in her eyes. "I will be fine," I assured her. "Thank you for being here." After they left, I changed into comfortable clothes and sat on my couch. The house felt too quiet, too empty. I turned on the television but could not focus on anything. My mind kept returning to Sophie. Where was she right now? Was she really working late, or had she just not wanted to come? Around 9 o'clock, I picked up my phone and opened Facebook. I rarely use social media, but sometimes I scrolled through to see what old friends were up to. I was mindlessly looking through my feed when I saw a new post from Kristen, my ex-husband's wife. Kristen and I were not friends on Facebook, but her page was public, and sometimes the algorithm showed me her posts anyway. The post had been uploaded 30 minutes ago. The caption read, "Best girls' night ever, so grateful for family." There was a short video attached. My finger hovered over the play button. Something told me not to watch it. But I could not stop myself. I pressed play. The video was only about 20 seconds long, but those 20 seconds shattered my world. The camera panned across a table at what looked like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, one of the most expensive restaurants in Austin. There were wine glasses, plates of steak candlelight. The camera moved to show Kristen smiling brightly at the camera. Then it moved to Andrew, my ex-husband, raising his glass. And then there she was, Sophie. My daughter, who was supposed to be working late, who had broken my heart by missing my birthday, was sitting at that table. She was wearing a red dress I had never seen before, fitted and elegant. Her hair was styled, her makeup perfect. She was laughing, raising a champagne glass toward the camera. Kristen's voice came through the video's audio to family and new beginnings. Sophie clinked her glass against Kristen's and Andrew's. The three of them were toasting, celebrating something together, while I had been sitting alone in a restaurant with an empty chair beside me. The video ended. I stared at my phone screen, my hand shaking. I played the video again and again. Each time the image of Sophie's smiling face felt like a knife twisting in my chest. She had lied to me. She had not been stuck at work. She had chosen to spend my birthday evening with Andrew and Kristen instead of with me. I set the phone down on the coffee table and stood up, pacing around my living room. My mind was racing. How could she do this? How could my own daughter lie to me so easily and then go celebrate with the man who had broken my heart and his new wife? What kind of celebration was it? What were they toasting to? The pain was overwhelming. It was not just sadness, it was betrayal, confusion, anger, and a deep, aching sense of loss. I had raised Sophie by myself for most of her childhood while Andrew worked long hours. I had sacrificed my own needs, my own dreams to make sure she had everything she needed. And this was how she repaid me. By lying to me on my 60th birthday, I wanted to call her right then and there. I wanted to scream at her to demand an explanation. But I stopped myself. If I called her now emotional and angry, she might brush me off. She might make excuses. She might turn it around and make me feel like I was overreacting. I needed to think clearly. I needed to understand what was really happening before I confronted her. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the video in my mind over and over. Sophie's laugh, her smile. The way she had clinked glasses with Kristen. It all felt like a nightmare, except I could not wake up from it. The next morning, I woke up exhausted. My eyes were swollen from crying and my head ached. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at my kitchen table trying to gather my thoughts. I needed to understand what was happening. Was this the first time Sophie had spent time with Andrew and Kristen? Or had it been going on for a while? I opened my laptop and went to Kristen's Facebook page. I started scrolling through her previous posts, going back weeks, then months. What I found made my stomach turn. There were multiple photos and posts featuring Sophie. In May, there was a picture of Sophie and Kristen at a spa, both of them in white robes smiling at the camera. The caption said, "Best spa day with my favorite girl, E." In April, there was a photo of Sophie, Andrew, and Kristen at a golf course. Sophie was mid-swing and the caption read, "Family golf day so blessed." In March, there was an image from an art gallery showing Sophie and Kristen standing in front of a painting, glasses of wine in their hands. Each photo felt like a betrayal. How long had this been going on? How many times had Sophie lied to me about where she was and who she was with? I thought back to the past few months. In May, Sophie had canceled our shopping trip saying she was not feeling well. In April, she had skipped our Sunday brunch, claiming she had a client meeting. In March, she had told me she was going out of town for a work conference. All lies. She had been with them, with Andrew and Kristen. I felt sick. I closed the laptop and pressed my hands against my face. Why would Sophie do this? What could Kristen possibly offer her that I could not? I was her mother. I had been there for her entire life. Kristen was just the woman who had stolen her father. I picked up my phone and called Patricia. She answered immediately. "Nell, how are you feeling this morning?" "Patricia," I said, my voice shaking. "I need to tell you something." I told her everything. About the video, about the photos I had found on Kristen's page, about all the lies Sophie had told me. Patricia was silent for a long moment after I finished. "Oh, Nell," she finally said, her voice full of sympathy. "I am so sorry." "Did you know?" I asked. "Did you or Helen ever see Sophie with them?" Patricia hesitated. "Well, now that you mention it, a few months ago, Helen and I were at the mall, and we saw Sophie with a woman. They were laughing and shopping together. I did not recognize her at the time, but now that you describe Kristen, it might have been her. We thought about telling you, but we were not sure, and we did not want to upset you over nothing." So even my friends had seen signs that I had missed. "What should I do?" I asked. "You need to talk to Sophie," Patricia said gently. "You deserve answers." After I hung up with Patricia, I sat in silence for a long time. I thought about calling Sophie right away, but I decided to wait. I needed to calm down. I needed to approach this conversation with a clear head, not with raw emotion. I spent the rest of Saturday trying to distract myself. I went for a walk around my neighborhood. I tried to read a book but could not focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that video. Sophie's face, her smile, the way she had looked so happy, so carefree while I had been sitting alone. By Saturday evening, I could not wait any longer. I needed answers. I picked up my phone and called Sophie. She answered on the fourth ring. "Hi, Mom." Her voice was casual, normal, as if nothing had happened. As if she had not just ripped my heart out. "Hi, Sophie," I said, keeping my voice steady. "How are you?" "I am good. Tired from work last night." "That presentation took forever." Another lie. So easy, so smooth. "How was work?" I asked, giving her one more chance to tell the truth. Oh, it was exhausting, Sophie said with a sigh. We finally finished the presentation around 10. My boss was happy with it though, so that is good. I closed my eyes. She was doubling down on the lie. That is interesting, I said slowly. Because I saw a video of you last night. Silence. What? Sophie finally asked, her voice suddenly tight. Kristen posted it on Facebook. You were at a restaurant with her and your father, having champagne. You looked very happy. I heard Sophie take a sharp breath. Mom, I can explain. Explain what? I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Explain that you lied to me on my 60th birthday. Explain that you chose to spend the evening with your father and his wife instead of me. It is not that simple, Sophie said defensively. Then make it simple for me, Sophie. Why did you lie? There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Because Kristen invited me weeks ago, Sophie finally said. It was supposed to be a celebration for her new boutique opening. She asked me to be there. I could not say no. You could not say no to Kristen, I repeated slowly. But you could say no to your own mother. Mom, please do not make this into something dramatic. Dramatic? She thought I was being dramatic. You lied to me, Sophie, I said, my voice shaking. You broke my heart. How is that dramatic? I knew you would react like this, Sophie snapped. That is exactly why I did not tell you. You always make everything about you. You are always so needy, Mom, always wanting my attention. I have my own life. The words hit me like a physical blow. Needy. She thought I was needy. I asked you for one evening, Sophie, I said quietly. One evening in a year. Is that really so much? And I have given you countless evenings, Sophie shot back. But Kristen needed me too. She has been really supportive of my career. She introduced me to important clients. She has been mentoring me. She has been there for me. I felt like I could not breathe. And I have not. Sophie sighed a long, frustrated sound. Mom, after the divorce, you became so bitter. All you ever talked about was how Dad wronged you, how Kristen ruined your life. I got tired of hearing it. I got tired of being in the middle. I was hurt, Sophie, I said, tears streaming down my face now. Your father left me for a younger woman after 23 years of marriage. I had a right to be hurt. That was 12 years ago, Sophie exclaimed. 12 years, Mom. You need to move on. Kristen has moved on. She is happy. She is successful. She does not dwell on the past like you do. The comparison stung. My own daughter was comparing me to Kristen and finding me lacking. So you have chosen them over me, I said. I have not chosen anyone, Sophie insisted. I am just trying to have a relationship with both sides of my family. Why can you not understand that? By lying to me, I asked. By ditching me on my birthday. I am sorry about your birthday, okay? Sophie said, her voice softening slightly. I really am, but I cannot always prioritize you. I have my own life, my own priorities. Am I even one of your priorities anymore? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sophie did not answer right away. The silence stretched between us, and in that silence I heard everything I needed to know. I need to go, I said before she could say anything else. Mom, wait. I hung up before she could finish. I set the phone down on the table and buried my face in my hands. My daughter had not only lied to me, she had chosen the woman who replaced me. She had chosen a relationship with Kristen over a relationship with me. And worst of all, she seemed to think I was the problem, that I was needy, bitter, stuck in the past. Was she right? Had I been so consumed by my hurt over the divorce that I had pushed Sophie away? I thought back over the past 12 years. Yes, I had talked about the divorce. Yes, I had expressed my pain. But was that really so wrong? I had been devastated. My entire world had fallen apart. Was I not allowed to grieve? But maybe a small voice in my head whispered, maybe I had talked about it too much. Maybe I had made Sophie feel like she had to choose sides. Maybe in my pain, I had accidentally pushed her toward Andrew and Kristen. The thought made me feel even worse. The days after that phone call were some of the darkest I had experienced since my divorce. I barely ate. I could not sleep. I replayed the conversation with Sophie over and over in my mind, analyzing every word, every tone. I kept thinking about what she had said, that I was needy, that I dwelled on the past, that Kristen was successful and happy while I was stuck. Was I stuck? I looked around my small house at my quiet, predictable life. I had retired from nursing, and now my days were empty. I had a few friends, but most of my social life had revolved around Sophie. I had built my entire identity around being her mother. And now, she did not want me. On Wednesday, 5 days after my birthday, I met Patricia and Helen for coffee at a small cafe near my house. I had not seen them since my birthday dinner, and they were both worried about me. "You look exhausted," Helen said gently as we sat down with our drinks. I told them everything. About the phone call with Sophie, about what she had said, about how she had accused me of being bitter and needy. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Nell, you are not needy. You are a mother who wants a relationship with her daughter. That is completely normal." "But maybe she has a point," I said quietly. "Maybe I have talked about Andrew and the divorce too much. Maybe I have made her feel uncomfortable." Helen and Patricia exchanged a glance. Then Patricia spoke carefully. "Nell, I love you. You know that. And you had every right to be hurt by what Andrew did. But maybe Sophie has a tiny point." I looked up at her, surprised. Patricia continued gently, "When we get together, you do talk about Andrew and Kristen quite a bit, about how they wronged you, about how unfair the situation was. It is understandable. You were deeply hurt, but maybe it is time to start letting that go, not for Andrew's sake or Kristen's sake, but for your own." Helen nodded. "Holding on to anger and bitterness only hurts you, Nell. It does not hurt them." I sat back in my chair, absorbing their words. They were right. I knew they were right. But it was so hard to let go of the pain. It had become a part of me, woven into my identity. "Even if I have been bitter," I said slowly, "that does not make what Sophie did okay. She lied to me. She abandoned me on my birthday." "You are absolutely right," Patricia agreed. "What she did was wrong. Very wrong. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I thought about that for a long time. What could I do? I could not force Sophie to love me. I could not force her to choose me over Kristen. I could not control her actions or her feelings, but I could control my own. An idea began to form in my mind, a shift in perspective. For years, I had been waiting for Sophie to call to visit to make time for me. I had been arranging my life around her schedule, her needs, her availability. I had made her the center of my world. And what had that gotten me? Loneliness and heartbreak. Maybe it was time to stop waiting. Maybe it was time to start living for myself. "I am going to focus on myself," I said to Patricia and Helen. I am going to build my own life independent of Sophie. If she wants a relationship with me, she knows where I am, but I am not going to beg for her time or her love anymore." Patricia smiled. "Good for you, Nell." Helen raised her coffee cup. "To new beginnings." We clinked our cups together, and for the first time in days, I felt a small spark of hope. That evening, I sat down at my kitchen table with a notebook and pen. I made a list of things I had always wanted to do but never had the time or courage to try. At the top of the list, I wrote pottery class. I had always admired ceramic art, the way skilled hands could shape clay into something beautiful. I had never tried it myself, but I had always wanted to. I also wrote book club, volunteering, travel, make new friends. These were things that would fill my life with meaning and purpose, things that had nothing to do with Sophie or Andrew or Kristen. The next day, I went online and found a pottery class at a local community center. The next session started in 2 weeks. I signed up immediately. I also found a book club that met at the public library every Thursday evening. Their next meeting was in 3 days, and they were discussing a novel I had been meaning to read. I bought the book and started reading that afternoon. On Friday, 1 week after my birthday, I composed a text message to Sophie. I wrote it, deleted it, and rewrote it several times until I got the words exactly right. The final message read, "Sophie, I have thought a lot about our conversation. I understand you have your own life and priorities. I respect that. But I also need to respect myself. I will not reach out as often anymore. If you want to see me, you are always welcome, but I will not beg for your time. I love you, but I also love myself enough to not accept being treated as an afterthought. Take care." I read it one more time, then hit send before I could second-guess myself. I set my phone face down on the table and did not check it for the rest of the day. I felt strangely free, as if I had just set down a heavy burden I had been carrying for too long. Over the next few weeks, my life began to change. I attended my first pottery class and discovered I loved it. There was something meditative about working with clay, about shaping it with my hands and watching it transform. The instructor, a woman in her 70s named Carol, was kind and patient. The other students were friendly, and we chatted easily as we worked. I went to my first book club meeting and met a group of women around my age. There was Diane, 58, and recently divorced, who had a sharp sense of humor that made everyone laugh. There was Janet, 61, and never married, who worked as a librarian and knew everything about literature. We talked about the book for an hour, then stayed for another hour just chatting about our lives. None of them knew about my history with Andrew or the situation with Sophie. To them, I was just Nell, a retired nurse who loved reading and was trying new things. It felt refreshing to be seen as a whole person, not just as someone's ex-wife or someone's mother. I also started volunteering at the local hospital 1 day a week. I worked at the information desk greeting visitors and helping them find their way around the building. It felt good to use my experience to help people, and it gave my week structure and purpose. Sophie did not respond to my text message for 2 weeks. I noticed the silence, but I did not dwell on it. I was too busy with my pottery class, my book club, my volunteering. For the first time in years, I was not constantly checking my phone, hoping for a message from my daughter. I was living my own life. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Sophie. I almost did not answer, but after a few rings, I picked up. "Hi, Mom," she said. Her voice was careful, uncertain. "Hello, Sophie," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "I got your message," she said. "Okay." There was a pause. "Are you angry with me?" I thought about that question. Was I angry? Not really. I had moved past anger into something else. Acceptance, maybe. No, Sophie, I said honestly. I am not angry. I am just accepting reality. What does that mean? It means I understand that you have your own life and your own priorities, and I need to have mine too. Another pause. Kristen said I was too harsh with you. I was surprised. Kristen said that... Yeah. After I told her about our fight, she said I should apologize to you. She said I should not have lied about your birthday. I did not know what to make of that. Kristen, of all people, defending me to my daughter. The irony was not lost on me. You do not need to apologize because Kristen told you to, I said. Only apologize if you mean it. I do mean it, Mom, Sophie said, and her voice cracked slightly. I am sorry for lying. I should not have done that. It was wrong. Thank you, I said simply. Can we have lunch sometime? Sophie asked. I would like to see you. In the past, I would have said yes immediately. I would have rearranged my entire schedule to accommodate her, but things were different now. If you want to, yes, I said, but I am pretty busy these days. I will have to check my schedule and get back to you. There was silence on the other end. Sophie was clearly surprised that I was not immediately available. Oh, she finally said. Okay, just let me know. I will, I said. Take care, Sophie. After we hung up, I sat back and smiled. It felt good to have boundaries. It felt good to prioritize myself for once. 3 months passed. Summer turned to fall. My life continued to expand in ways I had never imagined. My pottery skills improved, and I even sold a few pieces at a local craft fair. My book club friends became real friends, and we started meeting for coffee outside of our regular Thursday meetings. Diane and I went to the movies together. Janet and I visited museums. Carol from pottery class and I took a weekend trip to Fredericksburg to visit galleries and wineries. I was busy. I was happy. I was living for myself, not for anyone else. Sophie and I did have lunch about 3 weeks after her phone call. We met at a small cafe halfway between our houses. It was awkward at first, both of us unsure of what to say, but gradually we found our footing. We talked about her work, about my pottery class, about neutral topics that did not bring up painful memories. Sophie seemed different. She looked at me differently, as if she was seeing me as a person for the first time, not just as her mother. When I told her about my weekend trip to Fredericksburg, she seemed genuinely interested, even impressed. That sounds really fun, Mom, she said. I did not know you were into art galleries. There is a lot you do not know about me, I said not unkindly. She nodded slowly. I guess there is. We started meeting for lunch once a month. It was not the close relationship we had once had, but it was something. And it was honest. I no longer pretended everything was fine when it was not. I no longer swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. And Sophie seemed to respect me more for it. She still saw Andrew and Kristen. I knew that because I occasionally saw photos on Kristen's Facebook page. But I did not ask Sophie about it, and she did not volunteer the information. It was not my business. Sophie was an adult. She could have relationships with whomever she chose, and I could choose to focus on my own life rather than obsessing over hers. One day in late September, almost 4 months after my birthday, I was sitting in my pottery class when Carol asked me how I was doing. I am good, I said, and realized I meant it. Actually, I am really good. Carol smiled. You seem different than when you first started this class. Lighter somehow. I thought about that. Lighter. Yes, that was exactly how I felt. I had let go of so much weight I had been carrying. The bitterness toward Andrew and Kristen. The desperate need for Sophie's approval and attention. The belief that my worth was tied to being someone's wife or someone's mother. I am learning to live for myself, I told Carol. It has taken 60 years, but I am finally figuring out who I am outside of my relationships with other people. That is beautiful, Carol said. Good for you, Nell. I smiled and returned my attention to the clay bowl I was shaping. My hands moved with confidence, now no longer hesitant or unsure. I was creating something beautiful, something that was entirely mine. My 60th birthday had not turned out the way I hoped. In fact, it had been one of the most painful days of my life. But in a strange way, it had also been a gift. It had forced me to confront truths I had been avoiding. It had pushed me to make changes I should have made years ago. Sophie's lie had hurt me deeply. Her choice to spend that evening with Andrew and Kristen instead of with me had felt like the ultimate betrayal. But it had also been a wake-up call. I had been living my life in the shadow of my daughter's needs and wants, making her the center of my universe. And when she had her own life to live, I had been left empty and alone. Now I was building a life that was full and rich, independent of Sophie. I had friends who valued me for who I was. I had hobbies that brought me joy. I had purpose through my volunteer work. And I had peace, the kind of peace that comes from finally accepting reality instead of fighting against it. My relationship with Sophie was different now. It was not the close, intertwined relationship we had when she was younger, but it was more honest. We were two adults learning to relate to each other with boundaries and respect. Some months were better than others. Sometimes we went weeks without talking. But when we did see each other, it felt genuine rather than obligatory. I still loved Sophie with all my heart. She was my daughter, and that would never change. But I had learned that loving someone did not mean sacrificing yourself for them. It did not mean accepting lies or mistreatment. It did not mean making them the center of your universe at the expense of your own happiness. On my 61st birthday, I celebrated differently. I invited my pottery class friends, my book club friends, Patricia and Helen, and yes, Sophie. We had a party at my house. Nothing fancy, just good food and good company. Sophie came and she brought a gift, a beautiful scarf she had picked out herself. We hugged and it felt warm and real. But the best part of that birthday was not who was there. It was how I felt. I felt content. I felt whole. I felt like myself, Nell, not just someone's mother or someone's ex-wife. Just Nell, a woman who had lived 61 years, who had survived heartbreak and disappointment, and who had finally learned to love herself. As I looked around my living room that evening, surrounded by people who cared about me, I realized something important. My 60th birthday had felt like an ending, the end of the relationship I thought I had with my daughter. But it had actually been a beginning, the beginning of my relationship with myself. And that I had discovered was the most important relationship of all. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love even when it hurt? Have you ever had to choose yourself over someone else's expectations? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Do not forget to subscribe for more stories about real life, real struggles, and real healing. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that it is never too late to start living for yourself. May you find the courage to set the boundaries you need and the peace that comes from loving yourself first. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.